So there's this quote from this pretty smart and successful guy, Warren Buffett, and he said, "It doesn't matter how hard you roll, it matters what boat you're in," right? Now, I know this is an overused quote. Everybody uses this quote, but I wanted to explain how this quote actually relates to your business and how easy or hard it is for you to actually get clients and lots of clients, right? Because here's the thing, what this means in this context, like what bolt and rope means in this context, is basically your niche, your market, right? So it doesn't matter how many hours a day you work, it doesn't matter how many posts you do, it doesn't matter how many outreach messages you send out to prospects, right? So how hard you roll, if you are not in the right boat, if you are not in the right market, if you don't have the right niche. So I built a checklist, literally step by step, of the most important things that you need to consider when picking the right market. And even if you have been in business for more than 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, this video is still going to apply to you. So this is not just for beginners, right? This is going to apply to you because guess what? Most coaches and consultants and agency owners, they pick the wrong market or they don't even have a market. So I have my checklist right here in the computer. So let's go through every single important thing one by one. So the first thing, which is really important, is there a clear, big, painful problem that your market, the market you want to choose, has? Okay. So do they have a neck bleeding problem? But it's just got to be like one big problem, not a thousand of different like smaller problems. Okay. So when people, choose a market, like they usually think like, what am I passionate about? What's interesting out there? What's hot out there? But they're thinking the wrong way. Like you should not pick a market unless they have a huge issue, like a huge personal issue, a neck bleeding problem, a fitness issue, whatever, business issue, whatever it is. But you have to make sure that the market that you're picking does have this one big problem. And here's the other thing, right? Sometimes your market might be based around the problem, right? It might not necessarily be like a title or like an industry. Your market might be built around the problem. So let me just give an example, right? There are basically two ways to pick a market. So number one, based on the problem, which I've been talking about until now. But secondly, also is around the title or around the niche. So just to give you two examples. So number one, around the problem, right? For example, maybe you're a coach and you help people who have gut health issues, right? So you help them heal the gut, whatever, feel better, have more energy, and so on, right? So this means that your market is people who have gut health issues. So it doesn't matter what title they have. It doesn't matter if they're a business owner, CEO, entrepreneur, whatever it is. As long as they have gut health issues, they are within your market. So this is a market that's based around the problem. This is one way to actually narrow down. The second way is the market based on title, based on niche. So, for example, if you are a lead gen agency, like a marketing agency, right? And let's say that you help restaurants, right, to get more customers. Well, then your ideal market is going to be restaurants, right? And you help them get more customers. So this is a market that's based on the title, based on the industry, based on the niche, right? So again, with some offers based on your expertise, mostly if you're a coach and maybe you solve a specific problem, your market is going to be around the problem, not around the title, not around like a making sure that they're executives or so on. It's pretty dumb because if you think about it, if you solve a specific problem and you're going to say, well, I'm only going to help executives who have this problem, well, you're going to make it very, very hard for you to actually find the right people. So this is something that you have to keep in mind. These are the two different ways to narrow down based on your offer, based on the problem or based on the market. But either way, if you narrow down based on the problem or the market, you still need to make sure that the market that you're choosing has that big problem, right? The neck bleeding problem. So this is the first thing, which is really important. Now, the second thing, and this is, again, this is a big one. Are people in this market actively looking to solve this problem? Okay. Are they actively looking to solve this problem? Are they spending money trying to solve this problem? Are they buying courses? Are they buying programs? Are they investing? Right? Because this also means that it's a problem that is important enough for them to go out of their way and to pay you 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is that you charge for your program. So this is something that you have to ask yourself, because if people are not already spending money to trying to solve this problem, well, it's going to be very hard for you to build up that argument to try to sell to them. This is the reality. So as you can see, By you picking the right market, you're going to make your life a lot easier. So ask yourself this question: when you're picking the right market, are they already purchasing other offers? Are they already buying from other coaches? Are they already purchasing courses, right? So those are really important things. And competition is a good thing. And we're going to get into that later. But this is the second most important thing. And this is in no particular order, by the way, right? Like every single point that we're going to hit in this video is super important. So do they go out there and are they buying solutions? Are they actively trying to solve their problems, right? Whatever it is. Do they buy books? Do they buy courses? Whatever it is. They need to be actively investing money, because guess what? If they already invest money, if they're already purchasing things, then it means that it's much more likely that they're going to want to invest in your solution and they're going to spend money with your solution. Okay. So let's go to the next thing. Has this offer or market been proven before? Are there signs of life? And this is a super important thing, because everyone nowadays is looking for a market that has not been touched before. Like everybody wants to be the first in the market. Like, oh, I just found this brand new market. I want my offer to be completely unique, completely new market. This is like never been done before and all that kind of stuff, which is really, really dumb, right? Because it's basically like, just to give an example, it's basically like the Dead Sea, right? So the Dead Sea, if you don't know, right, is like, a sea where there are no signs of life, there are no fish, like no organisms, no nothing. There is no life in the Dead Sea because of how salty it is, right? Simply put, because the environment is not conducive to having life in there, right? For the lack of better terms. So what this means is, you can think of yourself as like a fisherman, right? So you're a fisherman and you're trying to catch fish. Now, if you're going to go to the Dead Sea, right, you're going to see, well, there are no fishermen around the sea. There's nobody fishing here. So this is a great opportunity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit here. I'm going to put in my bait. I'm going to try to catch fish. That is a bad idea. The reason why there are no other fishermen around the Dead Sea is because there are no fish in the sea. So if you're going to want to fish in the Dead Sea, well, you're not going to catch anything, buddy, and you're going to just waste your time. And it's the same thing with the competition. If there are a lot of fish in the sea, if there are signs of life, that is a good sign. That is exactly what you are looking for. You want to make sure that there have been other people before you, or even people right now that are your competitors, that are already doing what you are trying to do. I'm sorry to break it to you, but there's no such thing as an untapped market. Like seriously, we're in 2026. The internet thing has been, a thing for a long time. So I can pretty much assure you that what you're trying to do has already been done before. And if you cannot find any competitor or any other similar offer, right, that is a bad sign. That means that you should run away, because you're basically trying to fish in the Dead Sea. Okay, so this is something really important. People are always running away from competition. They're like, "Oh my God, this is like a saturated market." That doesn't exist, right? So if a market is really competitive, again, that is a good sign, but that just means that you need to stand out, that you need to be different. So that is an offer thing. It's not like a market thing. So again, super important. People are usually running away from competitive, saturated markets. There's no such thing as saturation. Every single market on planet Earth right now, if you think about it, is saturated. And that is a good thing. That means that if someone else, if you have competitors, right, if there's someone else out there who does the thing that you want to do, that is a good sign. That means that people are buying. That means that people are purchasing. That means that there's business that you can get into. So, really important, you need to make sure that you're going to fish in a sea where there are plenty of fish and plenty of other fishermen right on the side trying to catch fish. This is super important. So let's talk about the next thing. Do you have an advantage in this market? So what do I mean by this? Okay, let's say, for example, you've been a lawyer for 10 years or 20 years, whatever, right? And you're thinking about, well, okay, based on my expertise, what is the best market that I can get into? Well, if you've been a lawyer for 20 years, maybe the best market for you to get into is the law industry. Why? Because you're already an insider. You already speak the market's language. You already know how they feel, how they think. You already know their problems, right? So you know the market very well. So that means that you're going to naturally have an advantage into the law industry if you've been a lawyer for 20 years. If you have been a restaurant owner for like 10 years, right? And you're thinking, well, I want to help brick and mortar businesses to get more leads. Well, guess what? You're going to have an advantage if you specifically work with restaurants, right? Over like anything else, like a barber shop or something like that. Okay. So that's something else to consider. Do you have an advantage in this market? Because guess what? There's always going to be a learning curve, right? So whenever you get into a new market or into a new niche, there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to have to learn certain things about the market, like how they think, how they speak, what are the words that they use, what are the beliefs that they have, what are the struggles, how do those struggles manifest in the day-to-day life. So there are a lot of things that you're going to need to learn about your market before you're going to be able to master it and really master client acquisition in a specific market. And guess what? If you are an insider in that market, if you've already been a part of that market for years and years, that is going to be a huge advantage to you. So this is something as well to keep in mind when you want to pick the right market. Do you have an advantage in that specific market? So let's go to the next thing. Is this a growing or a neutral market? So I'm going to give you a very simple example, right? Because this is a pretty simple point. But is the industry or the market that you're trying to get into, is this a growing market or is it neutral or is it shrinking? So, for example, let's say that you want to help newspapers companies or whatever, newspaper publishing companies. Well, if you think about it, the newspaper industry is shrinking every single year and is probably even going to disappear, unfortunately, right? So what this means is that if you're going to try to get into the newspaper industry, you just have to be aware of the fact that this industry might not exist in a few years from now on. So this is something to keep in mind. You never want to pick shrinking markets. You do not want to pick markets that might not exist in a couple of years. So if your market right now is neutral, meaning it's not growing, it's not shrinking, well, that's a good thing, right? It's not bad. Like you can go with that market. But ideally, if you get into a market that is growing right now, again, that is a good thing, right? There's plenty of business for you to basically grow. So that's something to keep in mind. Is your marketing growing? Is it neutral or is it shrinking? It's something that you need to be aware. I don't recommend you to go with markets that are shrinking. Let's go to the next one. And now this is super, super important. Okay. So can you easily find your market online? This is a problem that 99.999995% of coaches, consultants have this problem. Okay. So, can you find your ideal client online? So, the way people define their ideal client is a very, very weird, like a very complex way where they cannot even identify their clients online. And then they're wondering, like, why is it that I'm struggling to get clients? Well, it's because you've kind of created a unicorn of an avatar that doesn't really exist in real life and you cannot really find them online. Let me give an example. This is from a coach that I've worked with like a couple of years ago. And this is a real example. So I had someone who wanted specifically to work with women, like professional women, professional corporate women who have ADHD. Okay. So that's the first thing, they have ADHD and they have been adopted. Okay. Now, nothing against this market. I'm not disrespecting any sort of market or anyone who's trying to help these people. But the key point is, how on earth are you going to find these people online? So let me tell you again, let me recap. So she wanted to target corporate professional women, okay, who have ADHD and they've also been adopted. How on earth, again, how on earth are you going to find and identify those people online? How? Right? There's just like no way that you're going to be able to find those people who are in corporate, professional role. They also have ADHD. They've also been adopted. Like, it's just mission impossible, right? That is just not a viable market idea. Some offers are just not going to work. So think about this. Can you easily find your clients online when you pick a market? Can you find Facebook groups? Can you find school communities? Can you find Instagram pages of influencers targeting this market, right? Can you find specific groups on LinkedIn? Can you identify them by title? Are there ways for you to use, like, I don't know, third party apps, tools, software, scraping tools to find this market online? If not, I hate to break it to you, but you are in big trouble. You're trying to find a unicorn, right? So this is something else to consider. Can you find your clients online? Can you source leads, right, from your market in bulk? If not, look for something else. Okay. So this brings me to the next point. Can you easily source leads from this market? If not, again, this is just not the right market. Like some markets you just cannot find online. Some markets are just not a viable idea for your business. And you're always going to struggle. You're not in the right boat. You're in the Dead Sea. Again, like just go with that example. If you want to work with women who have ADHD, have a corporate role, and have been adopted, how on earth are you going to find them? Right? So you're in the wrong boat. No matter how many hours you work a day, no matter how hard you struggle, you're just not going to grow, or you're not going to grow as fast as you want to. So next one, is it relatively easy for you to convert leads into clients? Right? How long and complicated is the sales cycle? Right? So, very simple example, right? For example, if you're going to sell to corporate companies or maybe Fortune 500 companies, well, there's going to be a pretty long sales cycle. Sometimes it can be even up to 1 year or even up to 2 years. That's something to consider. But if you sell to like a smaller market, like B2C, whatever, like maybe like a smaller B2B market, maybe you can convert that person in one call. So that's something else to consider. How easy is it going to be for you to convert people into paying clients? How long is it going to take you? Do they need to get approval from their boss? Do they need to get approval from their CEO? Do they need to get approval from the financial department, from the legal department? How many hoops do you have to jump through to be able to get this client and start working with them? That's something to consider. Okay. So the next thing, how big is your total addressable market? Now, usually this is not a problem because 90% of the times people go too broad instead of focused enough to where they pretty much try to target everyone, and that is way too broad for them to even get results. So usually total addressable market is not a problem. But just to give you, some examples, you want to have a total addressable market of 30,000 in the US. So for example, if you want to work with lawyers, right, or whatever, attorneys, you want to make sure there are more than 30,000 attorneys in the US specifically. If that's the case, good, your market is big enough. You typically want to be above 30,000. If you're below 13,000, it's not a deal breaker, but your lifetime value has to be like pretty huge, right, for you to make profit in the market. So that's something else to consider. But again, this is not a big problem. Most people go too broad, right? And they need to narrow down, to niche down literally 3 times. Okay. So most people like target professionals, busy professionals. What does that even mean? Busy professional means everyone, right? And that's an example where they need to narrow down 3 times. Like, is it lawyers? Is it busy lawyers? Okay, well, if it's busy lawyers, now let's narrow down further. What problem do they have? What is the problem that you solve for them specifically? What type of lawyers, right, do you want to serve? And all that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, another thing to consider, does this market have purchasing power? Right? Can they afford easily a high ticket offer or like a high ticket program? Can they pay you 2,000, 5,000, whatever it is, whatever you charge for your program, right? And to give an example, if you want to sell to people who have been laid off, and they don't have a job, they're struggling to find a job, well, you can expect that they're going to have financial issues, right? And let's say that there's someone who wasn't previously like an executive or didn't have like a really, uh, you know, really well paid job before. Let's say that there was someone with a regular job, and they lost their job. Well, you can expect that they're probably not going to be super comfortable paying you 5,000 or 10,000 for your program. So that's something else to consider. Do they have purchasing power? Can they easily afford your program? That is whatever your program is, 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is. Can they easily do that? If not, you need to rethink your market. Okay. So the last one of the last things is this the market where you can provide the most value? Okay, this is obviously something else to consider because your product is the most important thing. Is this a market where you can provide a lot of value? Are you even passionate about this market? This is also really, really important things. But most of the times, if you're a coach or consultant, then you probably are already passionate about your market, which is a good thing. You need to be passionate about your market. If you hate working with your market, that's not a good sign. You're not going to last very long in this market. Okay. And something else that's super important is responsiveness. So this is a huge one. This is a huge one. Do they respond to marketing, and do they buy the way you want to sell to them? Do they already buy high ticket offers? Are they comfortable with investing in themselves? Are they comfortable with purchasing high ticket offers? Are they comfortable with educating themselves, with purchasing courses, going to seminars, and all that kind of stuff? Are they comfortable with doing that? Are they used to doing that? If they're not, then you are fighting an uphill battle. Okay. You're really fighting an uphill battle. For example, with lawyers, what we figure out over the years is that the lawyer niche is a pretty tough market to crack. right? They probably don't usually invest in themselves, don't buy programs. Now, again, this is from our experience with a couple of clients who try to target a lawyer niche. It might not be the reality, but some markets are tougher to crack than others. For example, with lawyers, again, maybe they're not really that receptive to high ticket offers, to investing in themselves, and so on. So if you're trying to target lawyers and try to sell them a high ticket offer, well, again, you're trying to fight an uphill battle. Let me give you another example. Let's say randomly you want to work with restaurant owners, but restaurant owners naturally, again, this is just, I'm inventing this, but let's just say that naturally restaurant owners are really apprehensive when it comes to investing in their business. Okay. Well, if that's the case, and if you're trying to sell them a high ticket offer or like a program where they're going to have to shell out several thousands of dollars, guess what? You're going to have a very hard time. So you're going to try to fight an uphill battle. So this is why it's so important for you to think, does this market, do your potential clients invest in themselves? Are they used to investing in themselves, in their self-education? Are they used to investing in their business, right? If not, you're going to have a hard time trying to sell to them. This is something really important. Do they consume advertising or do they ignore it? Because there are some markets that are called media deaf. They just don't respond to advertising. They're just not responsive. So that's something else for you to consider. Do they respond to paid advertising, right? Do they invest in themselves already? Are they used to buying high ticket programs and offers? If not, you're going to have a hard time. So that's pretty much it for the checklist. A few final thoughts. So when it comes to you getting your ideal clients, is always like finding the needle in the haystack, right? It's always going to be like this. There's no such thing as every single person in this market is going to be my ideal client. No matter how specific you are, there's no such thing. There's going to be people that are not going to be a good fit for your offer. There are going to be people who are not going to respond to your offer, and so on. The secret to this is, because it's always about finding the needle in the haystack, is you want to shrink the haystack, right? So this means narrow down, be way more specific with your market, like niche down 3 times, 2 times, right? So shrink the haystack, only talk to the needles in the haystack, right? So in your marketing message, only talk to the needles in the haystack. So basically, only talk to your ideal clients and try to filter out anyone else who's not going to be your ideal client, right? Talk only to the needles and ignore everyone else. So this is what you need to do. Number one, shrink the haystack, right? Number two, identify the needles. Number three, only talk to the needles in the haystack. And then four, ignore anyone else, right? This is the secret. So the secret is specificity and having the right checklist when it comes to choosing the right offer, the right market. And this is like the offer, the market itself is going to impact the offer, and the market itself, the people that are going after, this will have the biggest impact on your business. Again, it doesn't matter how hard you roll, it matters what boat you're in, right? So that's pretty much it. By the way, if you want help with getting more clients, I do have a pretty cool offer that is based on you getting results and you actually getting the clients. If you want to check it out, there's a link in the description down below. You can click on that, and there's going to be a very, very short video. I believe it's 2 minutes. That's going to explain how our offer works. So you can check that out if you want to. If not, it's no problem. Subscribe to this channel. I'm going to post more videos like this, and I'll see you soon.